everybody. Welcome. It is Wednesday, March 8th. Welcome to tonight's session of Wind Down Wednesday. Very excited to be with y'all today. So go ahead and grab something, get cozy, grab your slippers, your blankets, whatever you need, and I'll see you back here in 30 seconds. Hello, everybody. Very glad to be joining y'all tonight. I am so still very gunky. I'm getting over a cold right now, and it's just that time of year, and I feel like I don't know. I mentioned this a few times before, but I love when we finally get to March. I get super excited about it, and I'm like, yay, we made it through January and February. I get just much more optimistic. But my brain always gets tricked, like, yay, it's spring. And then come to find out, right, we've got more snow on the way, which is never something I want to hear. Even in the dead of winter. I'm just not a snow person. Anyway, very excited to be with y'all tonight. You might be hearing my dogs in the background. My Shih Tzu who thinks he's a Great Dane, and my Great Dane who thinks he's a Shih Tzu. It's always the little dogs with the biggest attitudes. I don't know what it is. I think they look at each other, my dogs, and they see each other, and so they think they're each other's size. I don't know. Well, it is also International Women's Day. So I would love to see who is here joining in with us tonight. If you can leave us a comment, if you are live with us on Twitter or on Facebook, very glad that you're here with us tonight. Or if you are watching this replay later on in your week, very glad that you are tuning in. But it is International Women's Day. So I'd love to hear in the comments if you could share somebody in your life, a woman who lifts you up or who lifts others up. We would love to hear about them and celebrate them. And for all of our women watching, I would encourage you to think about a few things that you really love and appreciate about yourself. That's not something we spend a whole lot of time doing, but we really should. We should start if we're not doing that already. We should really be especially mindful of doing that out loud in front of our young people in our lives. That might be our students, that might be our own kids at home. That it is important for them to see us, sharing our gifts and our excitements and our passions and things that light us up. I think that's important. But I have so many women in my life, I couldn't even begin to try to list them all here tonight. But I'll highlight my mama. She is so sweet. She's coming with me tomorrow. We're going on a quick 24-hour road trip because I'm heading to the Illinois Reading Council conference this Friday. So I'm very excited for that. So my sweet mama is coming with me, and we're going to have some dinner tomorrow night. Very excited for that. So much love to my mama. And then my other mama, my mother-in-law, she is actually in town, and I'm so excited. And she has just been when people say you're A1 from day one, that's my mother-in-law. She's just amazing. So we're very excited to see her. And yeah, so many other wonderful women. So if you are here, we'd love to hear your highlights, your shout outs to the women in your life. Feel free to tag them here in the comments so that we can all lift them up together. Lots of upcoming events with the Illinois Resource Center on our calendars. So many cool things, and I have to share with y'all. So I'm going to try to get really much better about sharing, moving things around on my screen. But I'm going to go ahead and post in the comments right here that I'm so excited about this. This is an annual event. We have our job fair coming up. It's just a few weeks away now because today is the 8th and the job fair is the 18th. So just 10 days away, which is very, very exciting. And so that is going to be kind of the theme for tonight's Wind Down Wednesday. So while we're here kind of getting comfortable and cozy and we're in our pajamas, all that good stuff, we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about, ways for us to prep for those interviews, whether it's at the job fair. And again, that link is in the comments. If you're watching us on Facebook, you can click that link and get all the details and where it is and the timing and all of that. But so many cool things to say about this idea of getting out there. And this is something I've said. You've heard me say it a few times over the last few weeks. As EL bilingual dual language educators, we are in demand, right? There's so many needs that our multilingual students have across the state of Illinois. And so if you are currently in a space where you're looking for maybe a change of scenery, this is the perfect time to come out to the job fair. So while we're talking about that, I did post something on my social media feeds earlier in the day, and I was just asking folks, like, what are your just general best practice tips, tricks for interviewing? And I did get a few responses, and I don't think any of them really for sure surprised me, but I do want to share a few of them with you. So I'm going to pull them up over here. The first one was about just being yourself. And I think that's you always see those funny memes that people talk about, like when you lie about something on your job application and then they actually make you do it. Like that's, it's kind of like a running joke. But I think that's so big, like being yourself, being authentic to who you are, not trying to hide any part of your identity, like the good, the bad, all of it, right? We all show up as flawed human beings into every space we step into, and that's good. So we shouldn't have to, deny any pieces of that. There was another one about being honest and sincere, and again, I think that's an important one. When we talk about I always hear people say oh, my best interview tip is when people ask you, because the question will always come up, what's an area of weakness for you or what's an area for growth for you? People will say oh, you try to take that and you turn it around so it's something good about yourself. You should say, well, I'm kind of a perfectionist. I mean, if that's true for you, sure, you can say that. But if it's not true for you, it doesn't, they're not looking for you to be perfect. They're not looking for someone to come in as, this perfect human being. They're looking for someone who's going to be a great fit. And if you can't identify anything that you need to grow on, as a professional, that might be a red flag, right? We want to be real about, this is something that I don't feel super comfortable with this area. This is something that I'd love to continue exploring. And, and if I had the opportunity to work here in this district, I would love to receive some coaching or some support to help me in that journey. I think that's a really strong answer. I would be so curious, as a new teammate comes onto my team, what are things that they're interested in pursuing and growing in as an educator, as a leader. And that's a cool opportunity to connect, right, with potential teammates, because maybe they have the same area that they want to kind of go deeper and explore in. And that could be cool. Hey, this person also said this, or maybe that's a district initiative we're all kind of working towards too. This person would be a great fit. So I think those questions, we don't have to kind of dodge them and go around. We could just be really authentic and true and just say this is an area that I want to grow in. This is something that I struggle with. And again, as teammates who are hearing you answer this question, they're not looking for someone to come in and be perfect. They want a human being to work with. And this one was a really good one. Daniel Hawker said, always have at least 2 examples of past experiences. I like that. Sometimes when we get questions in an interview, they feel very like, hypothetical. So pulling on your experiences and sharing specific examples, that will kind of help build your credibility, right? Of like, well, these are things that happened to me, or like me and my teammate were kind of going through this particular thing. And so here's what we did. And then we had to backtrack, right? Like we want to kind of hear those specific examples, how they played out in your school, in your system, in your district. And like, what did you take from those experiences too, right? It's not always like about the end goal, like the product, it's about the process. So I love that, that idea for having an interview. Have at least 2 examples. And then Jason shared his best tip. He said, people don't make use of the, like, your turn for questions, right? Usually towards the end of the interview, they reserve a little bit of time for the candidate to ask the interviewing team a few questions. So I love that Jason brings this up. He said, people don't make use of that time. It's a time to share your values. And so he says we should prime our question by front loading a thing that matters to us. And he gives us the example. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always interested in best practices. What does professional development look like here? I love that question, Jason, and I'm so glad you shared that. I really, really do like asking that question. In fact, that's probably one of my go-to questions if I'm part of an interview and I'm being interviewed by somebody. That's one of my biggest questions, because I want to know, like, I am truly a professional geek. Like, I love being able to attend workshops and conferences and read professional books and all of those things. So I want to know what what opportunities there are for me to, further my growth and further my practice. Like, is there, does this school district offer instructional coaching? What does that look like? How are your coaching cycles set up? Like, I want to grow. I want to be pushed and I want to flourish here, right? And then the other piece of that, like that's a whole other topic, I think, is like thinking about those questions that we get to ask, like towards the end of the interview. So professional learning is an important one for me, for sure. But really, like, this is a time for you to get really specific. You might, if culture and climate is something that maybe is causing you to leave your current place, that might be a question that you ask about. You might ask about, what opportunities are there for, staff to really collaborate with each other? Is there a structure, built into schedules where we have like team collaboration time, individual planning time, time to kind of problem solve and search for solutions together. So that could be another potential thing. But we really do. We want to kind of focus on what our needs are and what are we looking for in a district, because it really is like that two-way street, right? It's not just them learning about you. It's an opportunity for you to learn about the district and the school. And when we talk about serving multilingual students, again, this is a really good time to start asking specific questions about how their program is set up. Because again, as educators in this particular field of education, we know that there are so many different variations in programming. And so if you have been in your space and you have really served in like a sheltered instruction kind of setup for like service delivery for multilingual students, and you are seeking to provide more in-class support, or perhaps you're looking for co-teaching opportunities, that might be the perfect time for you to start asking questions about their service delivery models for their TPI program. Like, is there a lot of pullout happening? Is that in alignment with what you believe as an educator? And if not, maybe you want to look at other districts, or you can ask about flexibility. Like, how how flexible is, the schedule when I'm starting to plan for supporting my students across multiple grade levels? Will I be given that flexibility and that autonomy to look at the needs of my students and, the curricular, pieces of, all these different content areas? Will I be able to design a schedule? That's also a good question because, again, there are so many different variations in how schools support their multilingual learners, sometimes even in the same district, right? I can go to one building and they are really big about in-class support. And then I can go to another building just down the street in the same district and they're doing the opposite. So it's really good to be specific about those questions. You might even also ask about, and like there's some things, that you could, of course, research, and you should research ahead of time. Look at the demographics of the school, look at the percentile of English learners in the school building. So you kind of have that information. Also look at the language groups represented in that community too, because when you're able to share that and that like you're looking into what this community is like and how I can support them, how I can support the students and families, that would be a good thing to kind of know in advance. But it's not an end all, right? Like it's not the biggest thing. So being prepared is good, right? Like kind of knowing as much as you can about the district. But again, this is the perfect opportunity to ask all the questions that you really want to know, the things that are important to you. There's also those general tips about like making sure you have plenty of time to get there. I will always say like account for trains, account for trains and traffic and accidents on the road because that's life, right? And it's always like those things, like I feel like it's like a movie or like a sitcom kind of a situation, right? Like you're so nervous for this interview. And of course, now there's like unexpected traffic. So plan ahead for that, build that into your schedule. And if you're there early, great, sit in your car and mellow out with some tunes or something to get you in the right headspace, but allowing for plenty of time, especially if you have a longer commute to your interview place, like that's huge. So that's a good, a good tip. There's something that has come up though. Somebody contacted me on my Instagram with their tip and they said, make sure you dress professionally. And I don't know if y'all know. So for me, I almost get like itchy when we say the word professional because that is so like based on the individual. I will share like if I'm presenting in a school or at a conference, I'll always share like, people will say like, oh, we need your headshot for this. So you send like the professional headshot. But the picture I always share when I'm like working with teams and working with schools is like this goofy photo of myself with my two sisters. And I share that because that is who I am. And I always question like, why is that not professional? Because like I am the same person in both photos. But one maybe is taken more seriously. I don't know. And then, so when they say like dress professional, I'm like, well, what does that mean? Everyone might have a slightly different interpretation of that. Does it mean a blazer? Does it have to be like a certain color? If you know me, I'm always in pink. Like I would totally wear a pink blazer to an interview because that's just who I am. So I think, we can take that word professional and we can kind of stretch it a little bit. But again, being authentic to who you are. If a bright color is not your thing, that wouldn't make sense for you to do, right? But I think that when we show up as our true, most honest, most authentic self, I think we feel more confident. We feel more like, in our own space, in our own skin. And I think we are able to communicate our ideas clearer because of that confidence that we have. So I don't know, that idea of dressing professional, I think it's a state of mind. Wear what makes you comfortable, look nice and all that. But I don't know. That one I always kind of get a little uncomfortable with, which is good, right? It's good to kind of talk these things out. But if you have some tips and tricks for interviewing, we would love to hear them. Go ahead and leave those in the comments. The other one that I would say, so I tend to, like if somebody asks me a question, my brain, like I get so excited sometimes to answer a question that my brain will be like, Carly, go down this rabbit hole. Oh, expand over here on this idea. And then I start talking, and in my excitement, I lose track of the original question. So it is perfectly okay during the interview to say, wait, I'm sorry. Like I got a little lost there. I got too excited. Can you repeat that question one more time, please? I think that's totally fine. Give yourself permission to ask, to ask for that repetition. That is a very natural thing, right? So don't be afraid to ask them to repeat it. One thing that I did that was super helpful for me is as I was listening to the question, I would jot down like one key word or phrase from the question just to help me focus. And again, we're language people, right? We know that when we combine multiple domains of language, like we are able to be more successful, right? So as I'm like sitting there being interviewed and they're asking questions, I will just jot down one word or one quick phrase from that question. That does two things. It allows me again to refocus. So if I do lose track of where I was as I was answering the question, I can refocus. I see exactly what that word or phrase was that'll redirect me to the question. But it also serves as a moment of think time for me. And again, think time, we always talk about how important that is for our students, but it's so important for us too. So I love when people are able to say, that's a good question. Let me think on that for a moment, and allow yourself that space. Truly allow yourself that, 30 seconds to take a breath and really think about how you want to respond to it. Because again, like that pressure sometimes of like, oh my goodness, this is a high stress moment, right? I'm being interviewed. I really hope I get picked for this position. It brings, it kind of raises our affective filters. So when we can give ourselves permission to pause and take a breath and say, great question. Let me think on that for a moment. Okay. And then you go ahead and share your answer. I think that's a really good moment to kind of reclaim your power, right? Take that moment for yourself to gather your thoughts. You don't have to fill every second of airtime. You don't have to fill all of the silence. And even like when in the middle of your answer too, you're going to say, I'm going to pause here for a moment. Okay, I'm going to jump back in. So again, allow yourself to take those breaks in the middle of the interview because it'll help you to remain calm and cool and collected. And also, if you did that little idea that I shared about writing down a quick like word or phrase from the question, it'll help you to refocus to make sure you really actually answer that question and didn't totally take it somewhere else. But again, sometimes that's a good thing too, because people are able to kind of glean different pieces of, of what you share from your experience. So that's big too. So we've got a few folks who are joining in on Twitter, and we've got a few folks who are joining us on Facebook. So glad that you are here. We are chatting about our upcoming job fair. So if you are an EL bilingual or dual language educator and you are looking for a job for next school year, you've got to be there. You've got to be there. We've got so many great districts who are looking for amazing candidates like you. And we want to help support our community with, getting the job. So you can leave in the comments your ideas, your best tips and tricks for interviewing. So we talked about allowing plenty of time. We talked about even like how to present yourself. We've talked about allowing yourself to pause, take that break, take that moment to kind of collect yourself, right? And we've talked about what questions to ask potential teammates. I think another fun question to ask, if family engagement is an important piece of the role to you and for you, that could be another great question to ask too. Only again, if this is something that you are super passionate about. Some people say no, like that's not like my heart. That's not my heart. So I wouldn't put that out there as the question. But if it is important to you, ask about family engagement. Ask about different practices that they use to engage families, or you can ask about their vision. What is your vision for engaging families in this district? Because then again, you'll be able to kind of glean where they are in their journey of being supportive to the families that we serve. So lots of fun ideas out there. And if you, again, are catching the replay of this, we would still love to hear your thoughts and ideas. But y'all, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. I'm still trying to get over my cold. I feel like I'm so puffy. I don't know. I feel like I always get so sick every spring. I don't know. And it's not even quite spring yet. It's still winter, Carly. All right, y'all. But make sure that you go on to our website. Make sure you are following us on all of our social media platforms so that you can stay up to date with all of the exciting events we've got going on. And good luck to everybody who is going after those interviews. Good luck at that job fair. You're going to rock it. We are cheering you on. And if you need anything at all, please reach out to us at any time. We've got your back. We'll see you next week for another edition of Wind Down Wednesday. Have a good evening, everyone.